Hi, everyone. This is Riley here with another installment of First Chapter Friday. So, again, if you're watching this video live, so to speak, in order, so to speak, it is being released during the month of October in 2023. And so we're going to continue with our Halloween vibe. I'm going to change tracks a little bit. We're going to get away from zombies, but we're going to stick with the Halloween vibe, and we're going to go with one of my favorite young adult mystery books instead. This is book one of a series, and it is called The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. What I really, really like about this story is that there is something for everyone here. So for fans of the movie Knives Out, for the game Clue, there's no murder mystery in here. So it's not about murder, but it's mysteries where you have to solve riddles and puzzles and figure out what is going on in this story. And there's a whole cast of characters for you. So it kind of appeals to each type of reader. So the summary for this story is that it surrounds a high school student named Avery who, let's be honest, she's having a tough life. Things are not going well for her. Both of her parents have passed away. She lives with her sister. She is incredibly smart, but is seriously struggling to finish high school. And then out of the blue, she is left a massive inheritance from a billionaire who passes away, and his name is Tobias Hawthorne. She has no idea why she was listed as the person to get all of his estate and money and everything he owns, and she's completely confused. And there's also a huge catch. In order to keep this massive inheritance, she has to move into his mansion called Hawthorne House. To make it super awkward, Hawthorne House already has people living in it, namely his family, who did not get any of the inheritance. And so his family lives there, including 4 grandsons who are pretty much convinced Avery is some kind of con person, like she must have weaseled her way into their grandfather's life. And so they start to see it as one final riddle by this confusing, mysterious billionaire man who has left his inheritance to a complete stranger. So I am going to read to you chapter 1 from The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. When I was a kid, my mom constantly invented games. The quiet game, the who can make their cookie last longer game, a perennial favorite, the marshmallow game involved eating marshmallows while wearing puffy Goodwill jackets indoors to avoid turning on the heat. The flashlight game was what we played when the electricity went out. We never walked anywhere. We raced. The floor was nearly always lava. The primary purpose of pillows was building forts. Our longest lasting game was called I Have a Secret because my mom said that everyone should always have at least one. Some days she guessed mine, some days she didn't. We played every week right up until I was 15, and one of her secrets landed her in the hospital. The next thing I knew, she was gone. Your move, princess. A gravelly voice dragged me back to the present. I don't have all day. Not a princess, I retorted, sliding one of my knights into place. Your move, old man. Harry scowled at me. I don't know how old he was, really, and I had no idea how he'd come to be homeless and living in the park where we played chess each morning. I did know that he was a formidable opponent. You, he grumbled, eyeing the board, are a horrible person. 3 moves later, I had him. Checkmate. You know what that means, Harry. He gave me a dirty look. I have to let you buy me breakfast. Those were the terms of our long-standing bet. When I won, he couldn't turn down the free meal. To my credit, I only goaded a little. It's good to be the queen. I made it to school on time, but barely. I had a habit of cutting things close. I walked the same tightrope with my grades. How little effort could I put in and still get an A? I wasn't lazy. I was practical. Picking up an extra shift was worth trading a 98 for a 92. I was in the middle of drafting an English paper in Spanish class when I was called to the office. Girls like me were supposed to be invisible. We didn't get summoned for sit-downs with the principal. We made exactly as much trouble as we could afford to make, which in my case was none. Avery. Principal Altman's greeting was not what one would call warm. Have a seat. I sat. He folded his hands on the desk between us. I assume you know why you're here? Unless this was about the weekly poker game I'd been running in the parking lot to finance Harry's breakfast, and sometimes my own, I had no idea what I'd done to draw the administration's attention. Sorry, I said, trying to sound sufficiently meek, but I don't. Principal Altman let me sit with my response for a moment, then presented me with a stapled packet of paper. This is the physics test you took yesterday. Okay, I said. That wasn't the response he was looking for, but it was all I had. For once, I'd actually studied. I couldn't imagine I'd done badly enough to merit intervention. Mr. Yates graded the tests, Avery. Yours was the only perfect score. Great, I said in a deliberate effort to keep myself from saying okay again. Not great, young lady. Mr. Yates intentionally creates exams that challenge the abilities of his students. In 20 years, he's never given a perfect score. Do you see the problem? I couldn't quite bite back my instinctive reply. A teacher who designs tests most of his students can't pass? Mr. Altman narrowed his eyes. You're a good student, Avery. Quite good, given your circumstances. But you don't exactly have a history of setting the curve. That was fair. So why did I feel like he gut-punched me? I am not without sympathy for your situation, Principal Altman continued, but I need you to be straight with me here. He locked his eyes onto mine. Were you aware that Mr. Yates keeps copies of all his exams on the cloud? He thought I cheated. He was sitting there, staring me down, and I'd never felt less seen. I'd like to help you, Avery. You've done extremely well, given the hand life has dealt you. I would hate to see any plans you might have for the future derailed. Any plans I might have? I repeated. If I'd had a different last name, if I'd had a dad who was a dentist and a mom who stayed home, he wouldn't have acted like the future was something I might have thought about. I'm a junior, I gritted out. I'll graduate next year with at least 2 semesters worth of college credit. My test score should put me in scholarship contention at UConn, which is one of the top actuarial science programs in the country. Mr. Altman frowned. Actuarial science? Statistical risk assessment. It was the closest I could come to double majoring in poker and math. Besides, it was one of the most employable majors on the planet. Are you a fan of calculated risks, Miss Grams? Like cheating? I couldn't let myself get any angrier. Instead, I pictured myself playing chess. I marked out the moves in my mind. Girls like me didn't get to explode. I didn't cheat, I said calmly. I studied. I'd scraped together time in other classes between shifts later at night than I should have stayed up. Knowing that Mr. Yates was infamous for giving impossible tests had made me want to redefine possible. For once, instead of seeing how close I could cut it, I'd wanted to see how far I could go. And this is what I got for my effort, because girls like me didn't ace impossible exams. I'll take the test again, I said, trying not to sound furious or worse, wounded. I'll get the same grade again. And what would you say if I told you that Mr. Yates had prepared a new exam, all new questions, every bit as difficult as the first? I didn't even hesitate. I'll take it. That can be arranged tomorrow morning during 3rd period, but I have to warn you that this will go on significantly better for you if now. Mr. Altman stared at me. Excuse me? Forget sounding meek. Forget being invisible. I want to take the new exam right here in your office right now. That was Chapter 1 of The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. If you're interested in checking out this mystery book from the library, make sure you fill out the Google form in the library Google Classroom.